All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome as we return to the complete set review for not Throne of Eldraine, Wilds of Eldraine. Going over every card, constructed and limited. We did white, we did blue, we did black. You missed those, they're on YouTube. Go watch them. Leave a comment, like the videos, do all that stuff for me. And we got our rewards to give out. Lots to do here, of course. But again, I want to remind you all to hit that like button. As always, if you're on YouTube, helps out a ton. Please train yourself. Hit play, hit like. Any kind of creator you like, support them. It's free. It's easy. Also, remind you all about this. The Pile Driver pre-release. That's right. If you're a Twitch sub or a YouTube member, you can play for free in the Pile Driver pre-release. It's going to be on Saturday, September 9th at noon Eastern. It's a lot of fun. It's like 3 or 4 rounds. Very casual, very relaxed, very fun. We have prizes. It's free to play. It's a lot of fun. Check it out, of course. September 9th. I might or might not be playing. I'm not even sure what my schedule looks like at this point. But it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. Check it out. And if you're a sub, you can do that, which is great. So hop in to make sure you get in the Discord, all right? Let's go on with our set review with the first red card. Belligerent of the Ball. 2 mana for a 3/3 Ogre Warrior with Celebration. Now, of course, Celebration is one of the new mechanics in the set. We haven't gone over it a bit. It's a white mechanic and a red mechanic and a green mechanic, I think. Maybe it's red and white. Where Celebration basically just turns on if you have had 2 or more non-land permanents ETB. So that can be a creature and a food token, or a creature and a roll card, or whatever it might be. So, an interesting limited mechanic for sure, as far as putting multiple permanents in play. This one has, beginning of combat on your turn, if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains Menace to end of turn. So, 3 for 3, and then if Celebration is on, beginning of combat, pump a creature, give Menace. This is a pretty good aggro card. So, Celebration is in red and white. It is the theme of red and white. Of course, every color pair has a kind of archetype theme. Dimir is fairies. Black-white is like enchantment, sacrifice stuff, and so on and so forth. And in red-white, it's Celebration. And it's a pretty good beatdown card, honestly. You know, a 3 for 3 is totally fine. And then we have a pretty good buff here for making things happen, which is pretty cool. And yeah, obviously draft-only card, but pretty good draft card. Not like a slam dunk first pick kind of card, but it's a pretty solid draft card if you're in in that color combo. So works. Bellowing Bruiser is next. This is an adventure common. Of course, Adventure's Return. 5 mana for a 4/4 haste, which is it's okay. It's not great. And then it has the adventure of 3 mana for Beat a Path. Sorcery, up to 2 target creatures can't block this turn. So both halves of this card are pretty mopey. You would not play them on their own. Together, not bad, though. The problem, of course, is that you can't really do, like, them. I guess with 7 mana or 8 mana you do them together. But, you know, a little finicky overall. Like, maybe you get to a spot where you go, like, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, play this thing, push some damage through, board stalls again, play a 4/4. The problem is the 4/4 is just so small. You know, if it was a 5/4 or a 4/5, that'd help a lot, I think. But I think this card's mostly just filler. You know, if you're really aggressive, but even then, like, 4/4 haste for 5 just isn't that good. You know, so, it's alright. Kind of a limited filler card, not very exciting. Bespoke Battle Garb. Damn, we're dressing up, folks. Looking good. 2 mana for an equipment. Creature gets +2/+0. Has Celebration, beginning of combat on your turn. If Celebration is active, you get to attach it to a creature you control for free. Equip for 2. Once again, the numbers here just don't line up. You know, if this was +2/+1, or like +1/+2, maybe, but +2/+0 is not a particularly great buff. The only caveat I have to that is if you are the red-black rat deck. Of course, the rat tokens in this set are 1/1s that can't block, and also an easy way to get Celebration by playing multiple rat tokens at a time. Putting this on a rat is pretty good, because now you have a 3/1 that can't block anyway, and they're kind of forced to block it, which is not bad. So I think for the most part, this is probably good in that deck and that deck alone. Probably not really a card for your red-white Celebration deck, but seems kind of weak overall. Boundary Lands Ranger. 2 mana for a 2/2 uncommon human ranger. Beginning of combat your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may discard a card. If you do, draw cards. You have a little bit of a looter effect here. The Gruul mechanic, like it often is just creatures power 4 or greater. This doesn't really do a ton for that. It's pretty good in the late game in that, like, you know, you're in the mid-late game, board stalled a bit, you discard those lands and draw cards. But stat line-wise, doesn't really attack or block particularly well. So I think that most of the time, this card is just going to, like, trade with the 2-drop or 3-drop and never see the ability happen. But if it does, it'll be fine. I'd say this is like, you know, a medium to mediocre draft card. Not particularly exciting. Constructed, no. Charming Scoundrel, our first award of the day.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Charming Scoundrel is sort of like the all-in-one printer in that it has the problem of not doing anything particularly well. 1/1 haste for 1. When it ETBs, choose 1. Discard a card, then draw. Make a treasure. Or make a wicked roll attached to a creature you control. So, the last one's the most important one. We'll get there in a second. So, discard a card, draw a card. We're using an effect on much better creatures. You know, 2/2s, 2/1s, etc. So, a 1/1 ETB discard draw is pretty bad. Because even in the late game, if you're like discarding a land to draw a spell, you're only getting a 1/1 here. It isn't even worth a full card. So, it's not a very good filtering thing. And if you're looking to just put cards in the graveyard, there are much better ways to do that for 2 mana on a creature. Making a treasure is Wily Goblin. And Wily Goblin has seen a little bit of play, but again, is mostly sees play specifically in Goblin decks because it is a Goblin. You know, without that aspect of it, Wily Goblin isn't really that exciting. And then we have the last chapter of make a Wicked Roll token attached to a creature you control. This is the one that makes the card palatable. So Wicked Roll, of course, there are the rolls. There are 6 different rolls in the set. They are token aura enchantments that get put on mostly your creatures, and most of them are +1/+1 with a small effect. The Wicked Roll is +1/+1, and when it dies, opponent loses life. So the base level for this is Wicked Roll, where it's a 2/2 haste, and when it dies, they lose 1 life. It does turn on Celebration also, which is kind of cool. But realistically, 2/2 haste for 2 is just not really good enough by itself. You know, there are many ways to do that in Standard. There's the Vampire flashes back spells, yada yada yada. So I think this card is just like exactly stone medium to whatever. You know, in mono red, if mono red just wants a 2/2 haste for 2, this card does fill that role decently well. But as far as like the looty part or the treasure part, and even the looty part, like you can cast this empty-handed and just draw a card and not loot. That's still not even that good because you have a 1/1 in play. Who cares? You know, it doesn't matter that much too. So I think overall this card is pretty underwhelming. Will it see play? Yeah, I think you'll see a little bit of play. You know, if it's a mono red deck and you want to have that many things or whatever, it's a fine 2-drop. But I think overall this card is pretty unexciting. It doesn't really do any one thing particularly well. Honestly, amusingly enough, very similar to Charming Prince, the card it is based off of from Eldraine, which is very similar. A card that was very, very popular, but not very good because it just never did anything that well. So that's Trap card. In Limited, this card's great. In Limited, this card's 2/2 haste for 2 that triggers Celebration, which is all you'd ever want. So, yeah, in Limited, great card. But Constructed, I think this card is going to see very little, if any, play at all. Cut In. We have a common removal spell, 4 mana for a sorcery, deal 4 damage to a creature, and then create a young hero roll token attached to 1 creature you control. So, of course, one young hero is the weird roll token where it allows the creature to get a +1/+1 counter when it attacks if its toughness is 3 or less. So, kind of a cool, like, growing effect. This is obviously a great limited card because, you know, just 4 damage for 4 mana with upside is great. The roll token, you can sacrifice it, and so on and so forth. So, not amazing, but a solid removal spell for limited and nothing more. Edgewall Pack. 4 mana for a 3/3 Menace. EDB make a rat token. Pretty good card. This is a good nuts and bolts kind of card. For the Celebration deck, this is a Celebration activation. For the rat deck, this is a rat. This goes wide. It's got Menace. It beats down reasonably well. Blocks reasonably well also. I think this card is totally fine. It's a good, solid, you know, nuts and bolts draft card. Not a very, very high pick, but a very solid card. Embereth Veteran, Jacko Pop.
Where are they?
It's been so long. How far have we come since Jacko Pop, right? This is the first non-rare 2/1 with no drawback for 1 red in Magic's history, as far as I know. 2 mana for a 2/1 Human Knight, both relevant creature types. Pay 1 and sacrifice this and create a young hero roll token attached to another creature. So, for the most part, this is just Savannah Lions. And then, if much later in the game, you know, things are bogged down and you can't attack anymore, you can just dump it and slightly augment one of your other smaller creatures. This is mostly going to be a Savannah Lions most of the time. you know, that's really it. I mean, mono red aggro might play this because it wants some mana lines. Otherwise, you know, and then limited, I mean, some mana lines is fine. In limited, it's not the most exciting card ever, but it's fine. It's kind of cool. It's all right. Flick a coin. It's a mana for an instant. 1 damage to any target. Make a treasure. Draw a card. Honestly, not bad. If you're like blue-red spells or something like that, it's kind of a cool card. Kill a small thing. Make some value. The treasure can be sacrificed to our bargain effect, which is kind of cool. Draws a card. There's some instant sorcery stuff too. It's fine. Limited filler card. Food fight.
The salted pork is particularly good.
2 mana for enchantment. Artifacts you control have 2. Sacrifice this artifact. It deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of permanents named food fight you control. It's interesting. Kind of weird to see an enchantment that wants to see more copies of itself in play, which is kind of an interesting effect. However, I think at the floor here, sack an artifact, pay 2 mana to deal 1 is not good enough. You know, I think if it didn't have that like count your food fights caveat and just dealt 2 base no matter what, this card would be really, really good. But it doesn't. So, yeah, deals damage any target equal to 1 plus the number of permanents you name food fight. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't read. Hi, I'm Jim, pro Magic player. Welcome to my set review. So it does do 2 base, actually. I apologize. In that case, that's pretty good. So we go sacrifice, sack of food, sack of treasure, sack of blood, just to shock things. And then if you draw extra copies of this later, they get even better. This card's not bad. I think this card's okay. I don't think this card's incredible or anything like that. But if this card does what it says it does, it would be nuts.
Waka waka.
But yeah, I think if you're like, you know, an anvil deck or a blood deck or something like that, I mean, turning all of your bloods into shocks is pretty good. And it goes face, which is important too, so you can just kind of like, just get them. So if you're anviling or whatever, you can also be like an anvil burn deck, which would be kind of cool. This card's cool though. I think this card's pretty cool. Fun build around, honestly. And the stats are there. I do wish it made a food or something like that when it ETB, that'd be great, but it's kind of cool. And again, the fact that it's not awful at multiples is pretty cool too. And limited this card is quite good if you're making a lot of foods, obviously, but there's a lot of food in red, is there? So, kind of weird. Frantic Firebolt, 2 mana for an instant. Deals X damage to target creature, where X is 2 plus the number of cards in your graveyard that are instance cards, sorcery cards, or adventure cards. So this is kind of like your blue-red spells, removal spell payoff. Obviously, if this does, 3 or 4 damage, it's going to be a great first pickable limited card. Kind of cool that it's like not as good if you're not like blue-red or adventure-y red deck, which is kind of fun. So it's nice seeing a removal spell that needs to, its power level will vary based on your deck. But good draft card, obviously. Gnawing Crescendo, 2 mana for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+0 to end of turn. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, make a 1/1 black rat. With this creature can't block. So we have a variation on the old Trumpet Blast, which is the usual +2/+0. Kind of interesting in that like it's really good if you already have a lot of rats, but also can make rats too. So kind of good on both sides of the ball. And it's funny because like, say you have 2 non-rat like creature cards in play and then 2 rats in play. Even though you won't get rats when the rat dies, you still pump them. So you still have, a 3/1, a 3/1, and the other stuff too, which is kind of cool. So I think it's actually a pretty cool card. Again, creatures you control get +2/+0. The rats still get pumped, folks. So I think this card's pretty good, actually. I mean, like, not like, all right, let me rephrase that. Better than it looks and better than cards like this usually are. If there is a really good go wide deck, this is reasonable. And then if it's just like, just trades up a little bit, makes a few rats, it's fine too. Not a card you're ever taking highly. This is one of those like, really fringe archetype cards that no one else wants. You'll get like last and you might play like one of, but not an unplayable card. A lot of the skill in limited is finding a use for the cards that basically no one else wants, and maximizing them, which is really, really important. So kind of a cool card for the rat deck. Godric, Cloaked Reveler. Just boring, best in show. I mean, what do you want from me? Godric is a 3/3 haste for 3, which is fine. That's like a pretty solid stat line by itself. Celebration. As long as 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn. Godric is a dragon with base, toughness, and power 4/4. has flying, and then fire breathing for all dragons, which is interesting. So the obvious curve here is Godric and Kamano faces Kakazan or whatever, because Kamano flips on turn 3, and that's 2 things immediately that have haste and can turn on your celebration, Act 4 on turn 3, so on and so forth. There are a lot of cards that just put multiple permanents in play also. And again, the real thing that makes this card exciting is the floor is just good. 3/3 haste for 3 is not playable by itself, but it's very reasonable. You know, that's a card that has seen play in Standard over the last few years or whatever at fringe times. And there's a ton of upside here. You know, where they're at 6 or whatever and the board is stalled. You just hold that extra creature you drew, and then bam, bam, play creature, flying, pump, kill them or whatever, which is kind of cool too. So it's a legend that holds it back a little bit, probably not a 4 of. But yeah, this card's pretty powerful, obviously. It's not really a shocking revelation that this card's good. We'll see play. Is mono red good? We'll see. Being red does limit it as far as if there's a Boros deck that wants to play this card. But yeah, card's pretty good, honestly. I don't think it's like as insane as people think it is, but I think it is definitely a solid card and worthy of best of show. Obviously busted and limited, just totally busted. Slam it. Pretty easy. Grabby Giant, give me that. 4 mana for a 4/3 reach with 3 mana sacrifice an artifact or land, draw a card. It's a pretty good card, honestly. And then has the adventure half of That's Mine. 2 mana instant, make a treasure. Pretty fun card, honestly. So it just kind of curves into itself. You can play treasure on turn 3 and then cast it treasure on turn 2, cast it on turn 3. The stats here are reasonable. You know, a 4/3 reach for 4 is like fine, but the fact that it has this mana sink ability, if it can sacrifice your random treasures or foods or extra lands, just kind of like draw cards randomly, is kind of cool. It also can trigger celebration at instant speed, which is kind of cool as well, by making a treasure, which is cool, and can be an unexpected effect, which is kind of nice. So I think this card is the kind of card to play a lot better than it looks. I think this is a very, very solid red common for sure. And again, a little more desirable if you are celebrating or you are having a bunch of artifacts in play or whatever. Grand Ball Guest. 2 mana for a 2/2 creature with no stats unless you have Celebration, where it gets +1/+1 as trample if Celebration is on. It's a good 2-drop. You know, if you're a Celebration aggro deck, this can be a 3/3 most of the time. It's obviously a very good 2-drop. Trample's also nice too. That's good. Just simple 2-drop. Nothing crazy. Harried Speargard. Raging Goblin. Plus upside. Damn. How far we've come. 1/1 haste for 1. When it dies, make a rat token, which is obviously fine, you know. Pretty cool with your bargain effects. 2 bargains, cheap. Also cool that it's just a cheap card. So you're looking to just naturally turn on Celebration by playing 2 cards in 1 turn. Does that. Downside, not a goblin, definitely, but it's a cool card. I think this card's, again, a playable but unexciting card. Hearth Elemental. 6 mana for a 4/5. Costs X less to cast, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard that are instant, sorcery cards, or adventure cards. We see some melding here, right? So Teamer is kind of the adventure colors, even though blue-red is kind of a spelly color. We still see the adventure cards kind of coming in here and kind of crossing over with the instant sorcery stuff. That's kind of cool. And this has Stoke Genius, which discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. Obviously, very, very good if your hand is empty. I know, huge revelation, but yeah, pretty simple. So later in the game, with an empty hand, pay 2, draw 2 is insane. And then, of course, this is well-sized. And if you're just playing the spells deck, this might just cost like 2 mana or 3 mana or whatever, too. So this card's pretty good. I think this card's a great limited card for sure. And the question is, can this card do things in older formats? Maybe. You know, as far as Dredge goes, discard your hand, draw 2 is a Dredge possibility. And then if you have a bunch of cards in your graveyard, you might cast this for 1, which is kind of cool too. So, the card's pretty powerful, actually. I think this card could see play in other formats as well. This card's got 2 big things going for it. It's got a cost reduction effect based on your graveyard, and it has a, discard draw clause on a pretty cheap spell too. So, pretty cool card. I think this card's exciting. Good draft card. Interesting constructed card. Probably a little more of a draw in older formats, but pretty cool card overall. Imidane, the Pyro Hammer. 4 mana for a 4/4 legendary human knight. So, okay stats. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control that targets only a single creature deals damage to that creature, it deals that much damage each opponent. This card is a no-go in constructed. Just a 4/4 for 4 with an irrelevant ability for the most part. So, that being said, As far as limited goes, this card's excellent. 4/4/4 with a little bit of upside is pretty good. You know, you just like have 4/4, untap, you play a kill spell, deal points of damage, kind of cool. So good limited card. Not great, but good. But as far as constructed goes, a 4/4/4 with no other abilities. Doesn't really swing it. Commander, players, sure. Each opponent, do your thing, live your life, play your Blasphemous Pact or whatever, and I don't do your thing. Kindled Heroism. 1 mana for an instant. ++0, first strike, and scry. We've seen this card before like a dozen times. Fringe, limited trick. Korvold and the Noble Thief. 4 mana saga. Chapter 1 and 2 is Make a Treasure. So, pretty damn slow, honestly. Doesn't do anything, really, until the 3rd chapter, unless you're desperate for fixing and or to play like a 7-drop or whatever. Chapter 3 is exile top 3 cards of your target opponent's library. You may play those cards this turn. So, no caveat about being able to play any mana of any color. But, you have 2 treasures here. So, you can use those maybe or whatever. You can play land, also be at land. But for the most part, this is a pretty bad card. Doesn't affect the board very much. You know, it's a slow, maybe draw 3 that also might just miss. It does trigger Celebration when you first cast it, which is kind of cool. But I imagine those decks are going to be pretty aggressive and not going to want this effect. I think this is a real stinker. I think it's going to be one of the worst uncommons in the set and very, very unlikely to see play. Unless you're playing Sealed. In that case, maybe. Or if you're playing like a color-based mirror in a draft format, so you know that you will always be able to cast all of their cards. Maybe then if it's a slow matchup, but this card's pretty bad. Merry Bards, 3 mana for a 3/2. Again, bread and butter limited, 3 mana for a 3/2. When EDBs, you can pay 1. If you do, create a young hero roll token attached to a creature you control. So this can come into play with a roll token on it, and then when you attack with it, it'll be a 4/3. This is a celebration enabler. Another, like, you know, archetype filler kind of fodder card. Cool art for sure. But yeah, not the most exciting card, obviously. It's just fine. You know, celebration enabler, better for celebrating. Minecart Daredevil. 3 mana for a 4/2, which is honestly a stat line that I like in limited a lot. 3 mana 4/2s trade up on defense and punish players who stumble on offense, which is pretty great. This one has the adventure Ride the Rails, which is a pump spell that gives +2/+1 for 2 mana. This is a pretty good card. This is a pretty good draft card. We have an adventure card here that, you know, you can play with trick. Even if you don't get to, like, win the combat with +2/+1, you get to just trade up and then play this 4/2. That's still pretty good, honestly. You know, like, neither half is great, but both halves together is pretty good. Yeah, it's fine. It's not a very good trick. You know, +2/+1 is a pretty sketchy trick as far as, like, actually winning a combat. But if you do win a combat, it's insane. And even if you don't, you still get this 4/2 also. So it's still worth the 2 for 1, which is pretty nice. So, kind of a cool card. Cool draft card. Monstrous Rage. Wake Up. We got a sleeper card here, folks. This card's actually really exciting. This is a 1 red instant. Now, you read this and you see +2/+0 and you go, and stop reading. Don't stop reading. +2/+0 until end of turn. Create a monster roll attached to the creature you target. A monster roll is +1/+1 and trample. This card is effectively +3/+1 and trample for 1 mana, and the +1/+1 is permanent. That's a really freaking good card. This card is also a good trigger celebration and stuff like that too. It makes it extra permanent as well, which is pretty good. This card's awesome. This was very close for best in show for me, but I couldn't call the Godric card like a sleeper card. I didn't have the sleepers, but I think this card is excellent. Constructed playable for sure. +3/+0 and trample is +3/+1 and trample is a very, very powerful effect. Titan Strength had seen play before in constructed, and that card is much worse than this card. This card's real good. Really, really exciting card, and constructed playable for sure. You know, and again, the fact that it makes an enchantment, it makes it permanent. There's a lot of things beyond just the base rate, but the base rate is also good enough too. So, very exciting card. Like this one a lot. Great draft card also. This card is really good. It looks so simple and innocent, but this is a very, very solid card. Raging Battle Mouse, 2 mana for a 2/1. The second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. Pretty powerful effect, honestly. Celebration at the beginning of combat in your turn. If Celebration is on, target you control gets +1/+1 to end of turn. Kind of a cool card, but very, very fragile. Cost reduction is pretty cool, and doing it for your second spell is also pretty cool. The problem is this card's very, very fragile in and of itself, and like it doesn't really attack or block particularly great either. So I worry that the combat stats here just aren't good enough, despite the abilities being pretty cool. Still, a pretty cool card. I think for limited, this card's pretty great. For constructed, obviously double spelling is a great thing to do, which helps out a lot here. This card's cool. This card's cool though, but I don't think it's really good enough. But it's a cool design space for sure. Catcher Trainee. 2 mana for a 2/1. As long as it's your turn, this card has first strike. Adventure Side, that costs more than the card, again, cool design, is 3 mana for an instant, make 2 rat tokens. This card's really good. This is a very, very good 2-drop. So what we have here is a first striking attacker for 2, which is great. That's the floor. If you pest problem, making 2 1/1s and a 2/1 first strike for 5 mana is also kind of fine. Then you also have a spot where this is an instant. While you can't make surprise blockers with this, you do get to instant speed Celebration out of nowhere with nothing having been played yet. So it's not like you play one creature and then try and celebrate off of one thing. This is Celebration by itself, which is very exciting too. And this card's just sweet, honestly. It's a lot of good things for all aspects. This card's really good. I think it's a really, really good draft common. Close to Bombin Common, but not quite. Card is quite excellent, though. Great draft card. Constructed, no, obviously, but... Realm Scorcher Hellkite, a.k.a. the bomb rare you complain to your friends about because you lost to it. 6 mana for a 4/6, Flying Haste, so already quite good. Has Bargain. 2 mana to deal 1 damage to anything. And then if you bargain this, you get 4 mana of any colors when it ETBs. So basically 2 immediate pings. I mean, what do you want from me? This card's really good and limited. Set review over yet? There you go. Slam Dunk, obviously, in limited, just busted. EDBs, kills things, yada, yada, yada. Constructed, probably not. 6 mana is a lot. It is kind of cool that it has a limitless mana ability to deal infinite damage if you have like infinite mana or whatever, something like that or whatever too. But for constructive, this card's a little too expensive. But limited Slam Dunk, glad it's a mythic. That's for damn sure. Redcap Gutter Dweller, just another Mog Monday. 4 mana for a 3/3 Menace. When it EDBs, make 2 rat tokens. So pretty good, honestly. 3/3 Menace and 2 rats for 4 is fine. Beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a counter on this, and then you may exile the top card of your library to play this turn. I like this card. Card's pretty cool. A little fragile, but leaves behind material if it gets killed, and then it can sacrifice any creature, not just a rat, to kind of get bigger and draw some cards. Card's good. Is it great? I don't know if it's great, but if you're playing like a sacrifice deck, it's kind of cool. It's a cool card, honestly. It's a fine card. It's a goblin too, obviously, for a little extra value there, but great limited card, obviously. Just busted in limited. It's everything you ever wanted in limited. But as far as constructed goes, it's got a small chance. A fringe chance. Redcap Thief, more goblins. They made it for a 2/3 ED make a treasure token. Great draft card. These cards are always good in drafts. Usually they're 2/2s. This is a 2/3. And of course, treasure can be sacrificed to bargain or whatever else, which is really, really good too. Just good, solid draft card. Good body for a roll to take on also. So 3/4 is a very solid body. Also celebration effect too, which is great. So just rock solid common for limited. Rotisserie Elemental.
Sausages, nice crispy bacon.
1 mana for a 1/1 Menace. Little Shades of Bombin Courier here. Whenever it does combat damage to a player, put a skewer counter on it. Then you may sacrifice it. If you do, exile top X cards of your library. Rex is the number of skewer counters on it. You may play those cards this turn. Immediately, this thing has the issue of being not great to scale. So Bombin Courier would occasionally just get out of hand and draw you like 5 or 6 cards, which is insane. This card can't really do that because once you hit that 3rd or 4th card, it's going to be hard to play all the cards anyway. Has no haste, And it has to keep going in over and over again, too, with Menace, which is kind of tough as well. This card's a stinker. I don't think this card's very good at all. The body isn't there to be that exciting. And then it just has to keep hitting over and over again. And like with Bomat Courier, once you're unable to attack safely, you can still attack, get that extra card, and then just sacrifice it. Whereas this card has to hit to do anything at all. So this card's pretty damn bad, I think. It's pretty rough. So probably unplayable in most things. And then in limited, this card is like kind of okay, but Menace is not reliable in limited either. It's a tough one. Card looks cool, but if it had haste, maybe we could talk about it. But I think as it stands, very low floor and not a very high ceiling. Just not great. Skewer Slinger. Speaking of more skewers, depending for a 1/3 reach, whenever it blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, it does 1 damage to that creature. This is an okay limited filler card. It's not great, but decent defender. Not a great attacker. Has reach, I guess. Blocks some fairies. Maybe a sideboard card, against the fairy deck. Card's just okay. Song of Totenets. Red and X, rare. Make X rat tokens, and creatures you control gain haste on the turn. This card's not bad, honestly. Like 4 mana, make 3 rats with haste. Not being able to block is obviously reasonable. Or, it's definitely a drawback for sure. But kind of a cool card. Probably not good enough in Constructed because the rate isn't really there. But in Limited, this card is definitely quite good. And it does play very well with Ginny Fae. It is true. You make some doggos. But yeah, overall, though, not the most exciting. It is important to note, however, this card by itself, even just for 1 red, you can give all your things haste. Is that good enough? Maybe not. But definitely interesting. And of course, you're also making material here. You can like stack these Transmogrify, a bargain, and so on and so forth. You have an Anthem effect, like Wedding Announcement. Maybe this could be good also. But I think it's not quite there on rate, but in limited, it's pretty good. Stone Splitter Bolt, red X, instant, bargain. Deals X damage to target your Planeswalker. If a spell is bargained, it deals X damage twice. So can't go face, unfortunately. This is a limited level removal spell. Very, very inefficient, right? Like, X is 2. It's a shock. If you bargain, it's 4 damage for 3 mana, which is still pretty bad. So this is a pretty unexciting card. But for limited, it's a removal spell. It plays, much worse than Voltage Surge. Tattered Ratter. It's meta for a 2/2. Whenever a rat you control becomes blocked, it gets +2/+0 end of turn. Linchpin for the rat deck in limited. Honestly, it's just a really solid card. The big problem with the rats is they can't block, and they're only 1/1, so they aren't very good attackers either. Once they're all 3/1s, oh my, that's tough. So this makes your rats mostly unblockable, which is still very good too. So solid card for sure, good limited card. Torch Tower, 1 mana for an instant with bargain. 2 damage target creature Planeswalker. If it was bargained, 3 damage and scry 1. And if a permanent dealt damages would be die, it would exile. So kind of like a Super Magma Spray here. This is just better than Magma Spray, right? Strictly better, yep. And hits Planeswalkers and creatures and also exiles. And you can bargain to deal 3 damage. This is a reasonable card. Obviously a good limited spell for sure. Constructed, definitely playable. Magma Spray is, cards seen play, time in and time out. The ability to bargain here is interesting. Kind of weird this card is in the same format as Voltage Surge, because they do very similar things. And Surge does 4, not 3, which is definitely a lot better. But reasonable, for sure. Definitely a reasonable card. We'll see play constructed. Good limited card. Twisted Fealty. The mana for a sorcery to gain control of target creature on the turn. Untap it and it gains haste. And also make a Wicked Roll token attached to a creature any creature. So you have Threaten here. There aren't many good sacrifice creature effects in this set. So of course, all the bargain sacrifices an enchantment, an artifact, or a token. So there are not a lot of ways to do the whole steal and sack thing. That's usually the theme in red, black every time, which is kind of cool. So we see here, a threat with upside. The roll tokens are relevant also, but yeah, gonna be worse because there aren't as many sack outlets, but kind of a interesting card for sure. For constructed, it's kind of cool. Threaten here with upside is kind of nice. in like the, the sacrificey steal and sack decks, which is kind of cool. But yeah, just a fringy threaten. Two-Headed Hunter. We have 5 mana for a 5/4 Menace, which is okay. 2 mana to give a creature double strike trick. This one's pretty good, honestly. This one is, 2 mana for double strike is a pretty good trick, but usually not worth a card. But now you also get this 5/4 also, and the 5/4 is pretty good. It blocks well, attacks pretty well. Menace on a 5/4 is not the most exciting. You can't chump block it, which is nice, but like if you're gonna double block, you just double block anyway. But yeah, pretty solid card for sure. Adventure's pretty good here. Good draft card. Constructed, if for some strange reason the double strike is necessary, in a deck, sure, but not really constructed. But good limited card. Unruly Catapults. Bombin Common. 2 mana for an 0/4 wall. Tap to deal 1 damage to each opponent. When you cast instant or sorcery spell, untap Catapult. This card is going to kill a lot of people. This card is specifically for the blue-red deck. It's not for any deck, obviously, But for the blue-red archetype, this card just seems unreal good. Play it. It's hard to kill. It's got 4 toughness. The 4 is the magic number. 3 is not really enough. 4 blocks a lot of the early commons for sure. And then he just sits there and just tink, 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 tink. And because it's a common, it will not be difficult to get like 2 or 3 of these. And then you just have like a deck full of sleight of hands and removal spells. And you just do the thing, So Thermal Alchemist, of course, was very, very good in its own format. I think this card's better because being an 0/4 is very, very important. And you just keep dinging away, Play two-headed giant also, you can go boop, boop, boop. It's kind of cool too. It's even a commander card, right? Each opponent, what more could you possibly want? But very, very solid common. Somewhat limited by the fact that like it's an archetype card. You're actually going to play this in like your red-white aggro deck. But in that archetype, this card is going to be excellent, excellent, excellent. Real, real good. Bombin Common. Constructed? No. But really, really exciting card for limited. Virtue of Courage. This is the red Virtue, and these are adventure enchantments. 5 mana for an enchantment. Whenever a source of you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play those cards this turn, and then the Emberth Blaze is a shock. So Shades of Bonecrusher Giant here. This card at first reads kind of crappy, because you just like think it'd be like, oh, it's just a 5 mana enchantment, whatever. This card's actually kind of interesting, right? So 2 mana for a shock is obviously not ideal. But as we've seen from Bonecrusher Giant, totally serviceable. Like kills things. You wouldn't play 2 mana shock, but when you're getting upside also, that's pretty exciting. And the upside here is pretty big if you can safely untap with it, right? So 5 mana for this enchantment is very, very expensive. You're casting it and you're just saying go, and that's really it. But once you get to untap with this, if you're playing a very burn heavy deck, if you just like 2 mana lightning strike you, exile the top 3, you can kill them in bam right there pretty easily, which is very exciting. So that being said, I think this card is definitely not great. However, it is a pretty interesting card, and I think you could build a deck around it to kind of like just play a bunch of burn spells to try and mitigate all the kill spells in the format. And there are a number of ways to kill Shoulder now also, which is one of the big problems as well. And then you just keep drawing cards. You just keep bam, 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 do the thing. So definitely a card I want to see in play before I kind of reserve judgment on it. But it's a pretty cool card, honestly. I like this card. It's kind of exciting. It might just do nothing, which I think is totally a possible outcome. But it's interesting, honestly. And it requires a lot of burn spells, but it's kind of cool. We'll see. Again, this is a burn card, not a mono red aggro card. But we'll see. Witch's Mark. 2 mana for a sorcery. You may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Make a Wicked Roll token attached to up to 1 creature you control. So, Tormenting Voice, discard a card, draw 2. This also makes a little bit of augmentation too, which is pretty cool, honestly, because usually these Tormenting Voice kind of cards don't do much to the board. This makes a creature you have better, makes a piece of material for bargain and so on and so forth. This card is pretty good, honestly. It's a pretty fine limited card. These cards are nice when you're scared of flooding, which is kind of cool too. I think this card's very reasonable, honestly. Discard a card, draw 2, make some value. Not really a constructed card, but definitely, I mean, it could be, I guess, in a fringe scenario, but definitely a pretty solid limited card. It's nice. Stalker Frenzy. this card is pretty exciting for mono red. 4 mana instant, 5 damage to a creature. Unfortunately, not Planeswalker, which sucks. Costs 1 less to cast for each creature of an attack this turn. So, you got some guys in play. We've all mono red players have been there, right? You got some creatures in play, and your opponent goes turn 4, shouldered. And you're like, crap. You know? Now you get to untap. Just send the whole freaking team in. And then 1 mana kill your shoulder, which is insane. So I think this card's pretty good. I think that this card could have hit Planeswalkers also. Like, not hitting Planeswalkers here is a pretty big miss for me. But this card is pretty exciting in that respect. And if you're going super aggressive, it is also good defensively when your opponent attacks you as well, which is kind of cool. So it can be used on both sides of the ball, which is kind of nice also. This card's good. Great limited card, obviously. Like, insane limited card. 5 damage, 1 mana is pretty cool. And then on offense, pretty cool as well. Again, not adding Planeswalkers is kind of tough. We do still have the Heroes Warcrafting as well as far as the shielded answer, but Porco no la dos or whatever, So, pretty cool card. Cool design, too. I like it. It's a cool way to kind of make a kill spell that can kill big things, but also be efficient enough to be reasonable. So, that's it. So, with red, we got, to recap, Godric, Best in Show, Monstrous Rage, Sleeper card, and honestly, a little bit of honorable mention for Best in Show also. Charming Scoundrels, our trap card, and Unruly Catapult is our Bombin Common. That's right. Red's done. Green's coming up. You two folks, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit all the buttons, do all the things, support the channel. Appreciate that. Thanks so much. Let me know what you think. Let's do green.